hair is tucked.
Yeah.
Here we go. And
Hello and welcome. Today, no, although I don't think there'll be any. It is playoff season. The Oilers have been doing very not bad. Very, very not bad. Soon to be champions. We're here and joined by an actual champion.
Sorry, we
Oh.
just timed out for a second.
Uh-oh.
Technical. Let me
All
see
good.
what happens if I...
Yeah, you might have to stick it out. I forgot this is a
Oh.
steel and concrete building.
Oh.
Mm.
I had that cold thing for like a month.
Yeah, it's
Finally, the last week. Oh,
it's insane. Right from the top?
oh from the
Oh.
whole
I
intro.
know, I was just like
you
the
were
energy
on,
and
you were
everything.
on, I felt it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Excellent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everything's all good?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can tell when we're back.
Yeah. Perfect, folks, and we're back. I know we had that amazing intro, but like I was saying before, technical difficulties took us away for a second there. Enough about the soon-to-be champions. We're here with an actual champion. Today I am joined by none other than Keely Brown. Keely, how's it going?
It's good. It's
Yeah.
busy, but it's fun. And
I imagine it's
Yeah.
got to be like so exciting. Like here, right here in your office, you can look across and see just like the entire parkade of like fans. It must be like the city just feels like it's like just uplifted and the energy is like really high. Do you like get the sense of that here? I'm sure like
oh
being
yeah.
there?
Yeah, and it helps with the hours too. So the early mornings and the late nights with the games and watching all the other games on TV too. But it's neat. You just get to look outside my
hear us,
window.
right?
You see the fan park. You see we have this big tent going up for all the people that want to come and watch and things like that. But yeah, so I'm head of legal here
Yes,
for
I was going to say
the Oilers.
after
and
I did that
yeah,
introduction
all
to
of
the Oilers.
that.
No, Keely is the senior legal counsel for
Head of legal is
head of
the-
legal counsel.
for sports and entertainment side of OEG.
Perfect, wonderful. But on top of that is an awesome national level athlete. I'm going to try to list them all off here, but if I miss any, be sure to shut me down. But the biggest and most forefront runner, I would say, is Ringette itself. That one was so interesting because I got to learn so much about it because we tried to do some research here. And yeah, can you tell me like how did you get your start in Ringette? Because on top of like Ringette, I know like you did inline skating and of course ice hockey, but what was it about Ringette that kind of like captured you?
Well, it's interesting. So I started back when I was 6, and it's I remember in Kitchener, Ontario. So I'm from Ontario, and my dad asked if I could join hockey, like my big brother. And I was sitting in the arena lobby, and I was just waiting to see if I was allowed to. And they said, "No, girls play Ringette, boys play hockey."
Really?
And so, yeah, you don't hear things like that much
anymore. Yeah,
any-
no, of course. That would
things have
get you,
improved a
yeah.
lot in the world, but yeah. So I started with Ringette when I was 6, and I think halfway through my first year, I tried goalie. And my first game, we won maybe 13-12 or something
wow.
astronomical.
Okay.
And I let in like 12, 13 goals myself. But going through the lobby, all the parents, great job, goalie, way to go, goalie, you did amazing. And I was like, I kind of like this goalie thing.
Okay.
So yeah, so I've been a goalie ever since, and I played Ringette all the way through, and national team for 14 years, and now I coach. And then when I was in high school, I was allowed to finally be on the boys hockey team. So I tried out for our boys high school hockey team, and I was the first girl. I went to the board meeting and stood in front of the trustees of the school board and just said, yes, I'd like to play hockey. And that was a check mark, got through there. And then in university, I started inline hockey as well, all as a goalie.
Wow, that's impressive. It's actually interesting that like there was that whole kind of halt of like boys do this, girls do this, because the one thing that I also learned about Ringette is that like it has opened up. I don't want to say recently because it's been quite like to include everyone of all kind of genders into the game. So it's always like I know awful to hear that like things were divisive and it's like you have to play this and you know boys play this, but that league itself has gone. You know what? We're going to be inclusive because y'all weren't back then, but we will be, and we'll make it happen. But on top of that, you also helped found the National Ringette League.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
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 I was
So,
like,
yeah.
oh my gosh! I'm like, did I do the research wrong? Like, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, what was it like to kind of like help form that? And then while reading on that, I read that like it doesn't have like it's not a league that it's a counter of like men's league. It's like a league kind of its own. And again, all women are like folks that identify as that and included in there. So what was that kind of like?
Well, it was, so I came out here to Edmonton in 2003 when I finished articling, so being a lawyer, and I came out here to play for the Edmonton Chimos, the ice hockey club, because they were going to let me continue to play ringette. So I was multi-sport athlete at high level, so in the National League for hockey and in the National League for ringette. And then when I was coming out here, we thought, we have all these ringette clubs across Canada, let's form a National Ringette League. And they kind of looked at me and said, well, you went to law school here. You help with you draft the bylaws, you help with the structure. And I was still playing, so I was kind of representing athletes and what would we like to see in the National Ringette League. And I helped pull all that together with a guy, George McKenzie, out here in Edmonton and Glenn Gaudette in Cambridge. And yeah, so it was a couple guys that had some ideas, and we pulled it all together across Canada. And now National Ringette League, Edmonton, we have two teams. The Edmonton Wham, who just won nationals.
Yes,
so
of
they're
course.
national champions out in New Brunswick about 2 weeks ago. And the Edmonton Black Gold Rush, which is another really good National Ringette League team.
No, that's fantastic. And
Yeah.
I do have to say, and if you folks caught it in there, I was telling Keely just prior to here that she would have been the neighbor I'd be so afraid to have like grown up beside, because as you notice there, on top of playing professionally through and through, while doing the research, like, and I'm sorry to burst anyone's bubbles, but yes, you do need to, of course, practice and go get your education in law to practice law. So it's not like she played at national level and suddenly they're like, you're now our lawyer. But yeah, you had gone and gotten your education, and I was looking for a lull where it's like, okay, won some champions, then went to school. But you were doing this all while going to school. What was that like? Was it like, I must imagine like it's like so fast paced and so like to go and like play, make it to practice, you know, make sure like homework's on time and everything's like assignments are there. Like, what was that era like?
It was always busy, and I found like I multitasked and I kind of brought my groups together and did what I could. But I went to university to play hockey, and University of Toronto, because the hockey was better in Ontario back then versus the States. And while I was there, I also played ringette. So I played for Waterloo or for Sudbury, and I would play mostly tournaments with them and keep it going that way. And then I would work, so I need money when I'm going to university. So what I would do, I would bartend. So where my teammates and my friends would go, I would just bartend at those places that they would, and then I could hang out with my friends, or I would bartend at the arena. So Varsity Arena at University of Toronto, I would bartend there, and I worked in the arena as a maintenance. I was the first female maintenance worker that they hired. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so learned how to drive a Zamboni, which all of this is relevant for this job right now. But definitely multitasking, just figuring out when I have time to do different things. A lot of scheduling, too, being a goalie. You need your goalies for the big games. But I found, too, that, like, I went to nationals. They had a rule when I went to law school that you can't miss exams. And so we had nationals coming up in April. It was in BC, and I was in my first year. And I talked to the assistant dean, and his daughter played ringette, so I don't know if probably helped at the time.
Yeah.
But talked to him in plenty of time and said, look, we have nationals. I have professional people on coaching staff that could proctor my exams if need be. And a friend of mine, Nadia, she's a psychiatrist now, but she was in her first year med school. So the two of us, we roomed together in our room, and we would go, we have 2 games a day at nationals. So we'd go to a game, come back and study. Go to a game, come back and study. And we're both like the two of us. She's studying for her first year med school, and I'm studying for my first year of law school. And
oh my gosh.
That's just what you do. You write an exam in the middle of nationals and keep going.
I must imagine that like as soon as you came to the dean, they were like, all right, so this is like national level. There's no way I'm
well,
going
you would
to
think,
Oh,
yeah. We
but
do have, well, because we have athletes right now on the national team and people that are working or in school, and sometimes they run into some roadblocks that, you know, you have an exam, but, well, we don't make any exceptions, and we try to work with them and say, I guess the national team, or it's nationals, or it's something like we are high-level athletes, and we're competing at the most elite level. And we're also very like functioning adults.
No,
that
no.
we want these people to come and run companies. We want these people to be successful in life.
Yeah, no, truly. And like it's very interesting, like sometimes like you'll run into some rules, you're like, this doesn't really kind of make much sense. Like from my side, like I didn't do any law or any legal, like let me just tell you right now. But for us, like there was a rule when we went to school, and I was kind of doing film and that education, that we couldn't go and join the union for work until we had graduated. But many of the, like when we'd approach the union workers, we're like, hey, are you down to shadow? And like, you know, I'm happy to volunteer. I don't need to be paid. I just want to get that work experience so I have something for when I graduate. And so they were open to it. They allowed us in there. Our school found out about it, and it became this rule of like, no, you're a giant liability. We're not going to take it. And we're like, but they said it's okay and they said it'll cover it. And I don't understand, like, you know, like we could get this experience, we could get this like work history, and by the time we graduate, like everyone's happy because we're doing the thing of like getting education to find a job. So what's going on here? But it's fascinating. You'll have like some rules that I'm just like, oh, that's interesting, and like what an interesting hill to kind of like die on, I must say.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of why I went into law school. I was in my third year of university at Toronto, and I had some concussion troubles. And so I had to take some time off of playing, and I skipped the whole inline hockey season for a summer. And then when I wanted to jump back into my fourth year and play, the school doctor didn't want me to play because he was cautious and concerned about concussions and repeat. And he said, you know what, I don't think the risk is worth it. I don't think you should play anymore. And I was kind of like,
sorry, excuse me.
I'm a goalie. That's what I do. I play hockey.
Yeah.
I play ringette. Like, what do you mean I shouldn't play? I feel fine. I've taken 6 months off. I feel like I've recuperated. And concussions back then were a very new area, and people didn't really talk and know a lot about the effects or how it played down the road. So I had somebody on the admin side that actually understood where we were coming from and understood where the doctor was coming from too, and kind of bridge that gap between us to see, okay, how can we do it in a way that Keely, you and your family take the risk and you understand what you're getting into, and we still protect the doctor and the school, and how do we make it all work so that you can play and see if that can work. So if I didn't have that person helping me out at the school, I would have been done with sports at that point.
Oh my
and
gosh.
So we went through, we signed some waivers, we were fully informed, all the legal side of things to protect the school, but also make sure that we knew what we were doing and we weren't just jumping in. I wasn't going to make a ton of money as an athlete back then, so, you know. And then at that point, I was like, if I didn't have that lady helping me on the admin side, I would have been hooped. I would have had nobody. I was just a number. I was just a face. I was just part of a group. And so I thought, well, how can I find a career where I can get, honestly, a degree of power? And not to use power in a bad way, but to use it like, how do you look into things? I don't know anything about waivers. I don't know anything about liability and indemnity and all that stuff. But where do I go? How do I learn things so that I can help others and so that I can make sure that my people are protected?
No, that's amazing to hear because, yeah, like, while I know that, like, you said it in there, like, yes, like, as an athlete, I was making a lot of money, but, like, it is a whole nother thing to take away something that, like, you've been passionate about. I must imagine going and practicing all the way from like when you were 6 and that first like hurrah feeling of being a goaltender all the way there, and then having somebody decide to say like, you know, stop, we're stopping you. It's like you're stopping the passion, you're stopping, you know, your love of the sport.
100%,
so
yeah.
It must be like a thing you're like, no, I'll fight this. I'm gonna go, you know, go to bat for it because this is like, this is my life. This is who I am. This is a part of me. I enjoy it so much. So, and I love the idea that like, yeah, like this is what kind of really propelled you and helped you push you into the law because like, yeah, like you're able to make those changes. Of course, like even with the National League, like you saw this change that had to be made. And of course, I must imagine everyone's like, well, I don't know any legal nothing. And then you're like, well,
okay,
that's why I'm here and make it happen. Has there been any other kind of changes that you're like really happy to have kind of like put forward for kind of like the Ringette League that you can kind of think of?
Yeah, well, I guess similar to how do you get things going and how do you start things was exactly my identity was as a goalie and as an athlete. And then when I realized in my 30s, mid-30s, I was going to stop playing and competing highly and wanting to start a family and things like that, it was where's my identity and what am I going to do? And so a friend of mine, Heather, and I, we started a Ringette goalie instruction business. because it's like my identity as an athlete. How can I morph my identity now into being more of an instructor and a coach and still be involved at a high level, but also help the kids, so help all the way through. And we didn't know how to do any of that, so we started up a website. Like, I do the books for it and do all the different contracts and all the invoicing and all that stuff. But we have ringette goalie business across Canada, and we employ, I don't know, like about 45, 50 different kids across Canada that want to run some ice times and make some money. And basically, Heather and I, we organize the ice times, and we have our drills and our plans and all of that, and then we give it to the instructors, or we teach the people how to run their ice times, or sometimes we go out. I was in New Brunswick the other week for nationals, and I went out 2 days early, and I ran a clinic, so 36 goalies, and we had 3 different ice times and a couple off ice and some goalie lectures, and ran all the New Brunswick goalies through some goalie instruction stuff, and brought their coaches in, brought their parents in, and did a whole full day.
That's amazing. That must have been, I remember, like, I think we tried to contact, and you were like, you know what?
Slightly away.
Yeah, you're like, I'm going to come back. And I was like, you know what? From reading everything, I'm actually surprised that, like, there's any window of time, but I'll gladly take it. But yeah, you had said that you were going there and you did phenomenally, and it was awesome. Can I just ask, what's one thing that if you, like, as a coach had to say, and I don't want to give anything away, okay, but what's one thing that you would encourage or want to see kind of in your participants or anyone kind of coming to you to learn?
Oh, interesting. There's so many different levels, because there's the young kids that are just starting. And I think definitely as a parent, so my daughter is 9 and my son is 7, and we play ringette and hockey and baseball, softball. But I think for those, it's just have fun. Like, figure out what you like and focus on the good things. And I think at that age, and it does apply for the older, but at that age, you're going to let in goals. You're going to make mistakes. Everybody does that. And it's just, how can you rebound, and how can you keep going, and how can you inspire your teammates to keep going? So we focus on that with the younger ages. And then with the older ages, it gets really complicated and complex, but it still comes back to you're playing because you enjoy it. And you're playing to have fun. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to be nervous. Let's get over that. Let's get through it and realize that once you get going, it's going to be a good time.
Beautiful. No, that's fantastic. And it's always nice to hear, like, the concept of, like, have fun. I know, like, as you kind of, like, age and get older, it becomes, you know, very much you could see it go from, like, have fun to, like, you better start winning. We need some wins here. Secure these dubs. So it's fascinating that, like, to the heart and to the soul of everything, it's like, remember to have fun, because, like, this is what you're here to do. You're here to enjoy it. And the beauty of ringette, too, that I found is that, like, it is a contactless sport, yes?
There's contact, but no body checking. Okay. So it actually, at the high levels, at the National League or Open, it gets quite aggressive and physical.
Oh, wow.
But there's no full-on checking.
Full-on checks, okay.
Yeah, so it's a lot like lacrosse and basketball on ice, the strategy with the 5-on-5, but it has a goalie, and you have to pass over the blue lines and things like that. But as a goalie, nobody can come in my crease. So I have a bit of protection that way. And then when you compare it to inline, for sure, inline hockey, when they can't always stop. So there's a degree of contact for both. Yeah.
That's amazing. And speaking of goalie, you actually not only just improved many things, but looking on Wikipedia, which, by the way, please update it because it doesn't link there, Wikipedia. But side notes to you, there is a glove specifically named literally after you, the Keely, the Keely glove. How did that come to be, and what kind of changes did you see and, like, kind of implement to, like, pass that to the Keely glove?
Yeah, it was interesting. So it's similar to how do you get things going and where do you start with things, was that for inline hockey, I had a company, Franklin, that was helping give me equipment for the national team. And they got their equipment made with McKenney, and McKenney is in Toronto, in Ontario, and they're pretty good with ice hockey goalie equipment as well. And so they got that made under the other brand for me for inline hockey. And then I got to know the McKenney guys, and I said, hey, I'm on the national team for ringette. Can you do anything for the national team, for the goalies there? And so they hooked us up with equipment for the national team, which was really good. And then Terry with Franklin and NAMI, he said, you know what, we're looking to expand into other areas. Is there anything in ringette for equipment that is needed or not quite there? Because what we do generally with ringette is take it from hockey and then apply it to ringette.
Of course,
and
yeah.
the ringette sticks are quite specialized, which is fair. But a lot of the equipment we just use kind of smaller shin pads or different sizes of things. But we don't have a lot. My friend actually makes these pure ringette gloves for players, which is pretty cool. So you get your stick down with the gloves. But so my glove is for ringette goalies. And as I mentioned, we have a crease, and when the ring is in our crease, we have 5 seconds to pass it out. And we can either pass it out with our stick or we can pick it up and throw it. And when I first started, I had this little mylar, little hand mitt.
Must imagine.
And so you're starting with little kids, not too bad, and you're just covering the net, and you make the save, you pick it up and throw it. And then once I got older, I was feeling the ring would tip off my fingers and go into the net. And so you're trying to be as good as you can. You're like, well, I could have had that if it was a bit bigger. And so then the options back then was you could put on a blocker, so a blocker on this hand and a blocker on this hand, and then you could still pick it up and throw it. Or you could put on a trapper. And if you put on a trapper, you have more protection on your hand, which covers. But then the throwing part was, it's hard to throw it. So you put your stick under, pick it up, and throw it.
Oh, my gosh.
Which takes longer because you only have 5 seconds, right? And so with Terry, I said, well, if we could do something that looks like a trapper and something that has a little bit more protection on the hand than a blocker. So you have the size plus the protection. You can make the save, pick it up, and throw it. And so we made a glove. And he's like, well, let's call it the Keely. And I was like, you got to be kidding.
Like, well,
Okay.
I mean, it's here. But, like, no, but it's funny that even you were saying, like, you got to be kidding. But like, looking at your record and everything, it would make sense that, you would name it after, like, a national level, like, goalie player. And, like, I would be like, yes, goaltender, she gets it. Of course, name it after her. She put in the effort. But it's always fascinating that you saw, like, little changes that you were like, I'm going to implement this, I'm going to add this, I'm going to modify that, because sometimes it's like very difficult to do. Sorry, we're getting a question from Rekha here. I'm gonna, what was the moment like for you? Yeah, that's a good one. So what was the moment like for you to kind of see that glove and like know that like it wasn't just like, we're going to name it Keely, like, yeah, sure. But, like, it actually ended up being named that.
Yeah, well, the first version was called the Keely Signature Series.
Ooh.
And I was still playing at the time, so I was playing in the National Ringette League. And my teammates helped me out a lot with that, was that when people are wearing the Keely. And so now they started calling me the Keely in the dressing room. And so by help, I'm being a little bit sarcastic, is that they help make it fun and make it kind of realistic and keep me down to earth on that. But it was quite interesting. It was really neat, but weird to see like a piece of equipment named after yourself. And now it's known across Canada that when you have whatever type of glove, because there's a couple knockoff versions, and now I have a new updated Pro, so extra plug, but there's a new one with more padding on the fingers, and the wrist structure's way better, and still getting McKenny to make it, which is good, and I sell it out of my basement and on my website, ringettegoalies.com. Am I allowed to do that?
No, of course.
So
please.
That's our website, ringettegoalies.com, and then there's gloves on there and our camps and all that stuff. But, so it's got the name on it, and it's like people in the rinks, they're wearing the Keely, and then someone's like, hey, do you know that is Keely? And they're like, wait, that's a person?
Yeah.
Because especially having a name, right? Like Rekha is a different name, but when you have a different name, they're like, wait, that's a person? Be like, yeah, and that's me right here.
No, that must be something to have, like, especially when you're, like, coming on the ice, like, help coach and everything. Like, and by the way, that thing you're holding? Yeah. That's the person. Like,
well, and it's neat for, like, when you have young ringette goalies or young ringette players, mostly female, but male as well, but now they have an older female that they can look up to and say, like, this is Keely, and she works, like, she's a lawyer, she's head of legal for a really neat organization, and, she has kids, and she plays, and she coaches on it. Like, you can tell those little kids to be like, you can do stuff like that, too. No, and, that's her glove, and she's right there, and she'll say hi.
Oh, that's fantastic, and that was good because it's a segue to my question. I was going to ask, like, what is it like for you to, like, have, like, obviously empowered so many females with, like, everything that you're even saying, like, I will say even beyond females, because I'm not going to even do that. But what was it like for you, like, empower, like, so many players? Because, I must imagine that, like, you, like, went through every facet of it, from, like, playing yourself to, like, modifying equipment to changing like I would assume like rules and regulations to like so you've done it all. Yeah, that must be like so amazing to break through and see that and like when you're talking to kids and everything like they must be so like I would be the most excited. I'm already excited, but like I would be the most excited to know that like you have done. Does it ever like do they ever feel like kind of intimidated or shy kind of approaching you because you're like hey you're gonna be doing this or don't do that and they're like you know everything. Yes, of course. Like, does that kind of sense, or do you kind of like how do you I guess would like break through to be like, listen, I'm just trying to help and just to aid and like because sometimes like you know getting advice from like the professional someone who's done it, you're like oh my god it was some terrible. They have to point it out. How do you switch that from like don't think that way but think like we all have something to learn?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because the kids all approach it differently. And you kind of, with the experience, you learn how to deal with all the different personalities because goalie personalities on top of it all. But yeah, like I've even had one of the kids at our camp, Alyssa from Spruce Grove, I don't know how many years ago when she was little. She came into our camp and she's like, I'm going to be better than you one day. I'm like, you bring it.
Yeah.
This is great.
Awesome.
And then I have other kids that are like so shy and they're like, can I have your autograph? I'm like, well, that's fun.
Yeah.
Like, of course. So there's the whole range of personalities, but it is like an interesting point when you were speaking. It kind of made me think of the role model aspect.
Yes.
And now, because I have two kids, grade 2 and grade 4, and with coaching with the national team, is that my partner's a farmer, so sometimes I have the kids. Well, during the week I have the kids, and when we have camps, like we have a camp in Montreal, so I'm going to drop the kids off at the farm, and good luck. You're there during seeding
this
and
is
calving.
all you, yeah, that's right.
And then the following weekend we have a camp in Calgary. So I'm bringing the kids with me to Calgary for a national team camp where we have 2 ice times a day and we have all sorts of off-ice type things. And they'll have iPads, but they get to hang out with our manager, Joss, and follow Joss around and help cut fruit and do everything. And then I get a bigger room so that they can go to sleep, and then all the coaches can meet in my room at night. And our director of high performance for Ringette Canada, she made a special point a few years ago to say, Keely, we want people like you still involved in our high performance program. You come with kids. You let us know where the kids are. You let us know when they have to come, and we'll help. And if we need to bring in parents to help or different things like that, but we'll get you that room. We'll make sure. And you see the PWHL is doing it as well. But like we see value in keeping you in the sport. And so I'm bringing my kids, which is a little bit crazy for me, but it's fun. And then all the high performance athletes are like, wait a minute, if I want to have a family, I can still play and I can still stay involved and I can still coach because I'm going to be supported. And this is what we do.
No, and it's fantastic that like that concept of like we want you involved because of course like you like the years you put in, the time you put in, the sweat, equity beyond everything else that you put in. Like I would almost be like if you didn't like you know like it was like what okay that's bizarre that you would not have but like with everything that you've done, said, and put together, like that's amazing to see that like they're so like we need you in here, we need you because like of course like eventually with everyone like you'll retire from the sport and then like coaching is fantastic, but you're also going above and beyond because you're like I'm noticing this and I'm noticing like we need to help kids here, we need to help this, we need to improve that. You continuing to improve the glove already too, like you're just always adding to the sport. Do you think there'll ever be a time or day where you're like, I'm retired, hands off? Or do you think that you're always going to like, I just have to, you know?
Yeah, I think as long as my kids are involved, because so I coach my daughter's team and I help coach my son's hockey as well. I think my interest might morph towards supporting them, but that's where with the goalie business and the high performance, I still, like when my daughter was first born, I was on mat leave and I didn't do anything during that year. And it was really, I felt like I lost a sense of myself. And it's not like I need to do something 24/7. Kids come first, work and all that stuff. I totally get that. But even just I play on an open A team and do the goalie things and the camps as opposed to coaching professionally or like in the NRL full time. I just do the national team because it's just camps here and there and then planning. So doing things like that. But it is, when you hear those comments, like Shelley saying, you know what, your kids come with you and we need to make sure that this is important for everybody to see that. But we've had that with hockey too. So my son plays hockey and we're sometimes the only moms that are involved with the hockey program. And our very first year, the head of the U7 program came up to me at the year-end party. He's like, thank you so much, you guys, for coming on the ice and being coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And so that all these, mostly boys, but the boys and especially the girls that are playing hockey, they see the moms involved, not just like the manager and those other important behind the scene roles, but they see you on the ice and you're coaching. And it's like, yeah, it's true. I can offer things for hockey. I can teach goalies. I can do all that, and I can do it for my son's team too.
No, totally. Oh, another question from Rekha.
Oh.
So the question Rekha has asked here is, how do the camps kind of change the way kids approach the sport? Do you see kind of that notion of like confidence and everything? Is there anything that like you're kind of looking to improve upon, and kind of like how do the camps kind of like really help and aid the kids in the sport?
Yeah, it's neat. So Heather and I decided, because she has a full-time job, she works for the airport, and I have a full-time job, now we have families, but we don't have time to do a full week camp.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do, we set up weekend camps. So it's 2 full days, and it's all goalies. So it's all ringette goalies. And the neat part with that is that the kids come in that haven't been to an all-goalie camp, and they're like, everyone here is just like me.
Yeah.
And in the afternoons, we bring in shooters, but the shooters are there for the goalies, and everything is structured for the goalies, and mostly female goalies, but we have a handful of male goalies as well, and gender-neutral people as well, so we work on our language and make sure that we're educated and informed that way. But I think from the very beginning is that we're teaching them off ice, and the full push-up and the half push-up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, we're doing push-ups. If you need to do it from your knees, what do we call this? And someone, it's a girl push-up. You're like, no, it's not a girl push-up.
Yeah, that's enough out of you.
That is a half push-up.
Yeah.
This is a full push-up. Let's set ourselves up for success.
Mm-hmm.
We're throwing the ball. What's this? Is this a strong throw or a weak throw? So working on the language with the kids that way. And we do the goalie off ice and things like that with the camps, and it's very specific to goalies.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, what's my future in ringette? What can I do? So it's the reffing, the behind the scenes, like there's other things as opposed to just making the national team in ringette. Where can I go? And it's dealing with confidence and how to, like, goal setting, as well as how do you overcome difficulty or setbacks and disappointments, and how do you react. And those skills are huge for life.
Yeah.
Because I always say, like, we've played the national, we played here in 2002 where you guys hosted the Worlds, and it was aired live on CBC across Canada, so 300,000 people watching. And dealing with that pressure versus dealing with life pressure. If you can handle pressure as a goalie at the high levels or the big games, you can handle a lot.
So then I have to ask this because it's a very great point that you brought up, that like, how do you transition and what advice would you have? Because it's one thing to like practice, and then another thing for like, you have your folks and support team around you, and now suddenly, boom, you're thrust into a game. And maybe perhaps, and I hope it doesn't happen, like the opposing, team's supporters are like booing, and there's also that pressure of like, the booing, them cheering, your losses they're cheering for and things like that. How do you, like, what advice do you have to kind of overcome that kind of mental side of like being on the ice and just going, I need to focus on what I'm doing and just drown out that kind of white noise?
Yeah, it is. It's interesting with the confidence, and we talk a lot about goalie because a lot of it is your balance, and to get into the technical side of it, of course. But the balance, when you're not feeling confident, you sit back. And when you're feeling, it's the same within the office with the desk. If you're intimidated in a meeting, you generally sit back and your demeanor is a little bit quieter. But when you're feeling confident, you sit forward and you lean into it. It's the same, you lean into the shot. And then if you're going to make the save, it will hit you and fall in front. If you're not feeling confident, you lean back and it will probably go through you. And you can see it all the way up to the National League for hockey, like all the different confidence of the goalies, like after you let in a goal. So we teach them that when you're not feeling confident, this is what your body does. So you need to counter it and pretend that you're feeling confident, and you need to put your balance and hop out there. And then the mental side too, so the mind frame of, I don't want them to shoot. I don't want to let in more goals. I'm scared of that. We change that. We reframe it, and it's I'm going to make the next 3 saves. So it's I'm going to make the next 3 saves. I want them to come in. I want them to shoot. I want them to come towards me, and I'm going to make the next 3 saves. Versus, we're winning 2-1. I hope they don't come in our end. I hope they don't shoot. It's like, well, bring it. I'm going to make 3 more saves before the game's over.
Okay.
And so we change the body language, which relates to real life as well, and we change the mental, how do you tell yourself?
No,
It's like, I just let in a goal, I'm going to make the next 3 saves.
Oh, that's amazing, because as soon as you said, I'm like, yeah, I do notice, like, yeah, once you said, like, the lean back forward, I was like, now I'm thinking of the games I've watched, I'm like, yeah, you can kind of
you can feel it too, and then things start coming through.
Okay, and so then I have to ask, because I've only ever played, like, recreationally goalie. There are some nights where, like, you're on, and Lord, are there some nights where I'm like, can we erase this from the annals of history?
Yeah.
What is your best advice for when, like, you have let some pass through and you're like, oh, I should have really gotten that one?
Yeah.
How do you kind of get out of that, like, from your experience, get out of that block into, like, all right, 3 have gone in, no more, like, you know, kind of thing. Like, what's something that's helped encourage you to be like, stop, ignore it? Like, because on top of the mental of, like, outside pressure, there's also the one consistently in here of, like, come on, what's wrong with you? Like, you know, like, and it's very hard because, like, yeah, it is language and it's fighting that, but, like, what's something that's helped you kind of, like, snap out of it? We got this. We're still in the game. Things can change, right?
Well, and you get that, you get that with life too, is that you keep replaying all the crappy things that have happened and all the embarrassing things and stuff. And so one thing that works, I hope, as goalies, but what happened? So I let it in this way. What should I have done better? So you identify, yes, something happened. What should I have done? You fix it in your mind. I should have done this. Okay, got it. What am I going to do now? And now I'm going to make the next 3 saves. And it's realizing that all this stuff did happen in the past. I can't do anything about it now. I need to focus on the next. And yeah, there's games where it's a struggle. And I play Open A right now. So I play some really good shooters and some really not good shooters. And I have a lot, I'm telling secrets, but I have a lot more difficulty with the really not good shooters because they don't shoot properly.
Oh.
And so they're off speed or not what I'm expecting. And for those games, I just, like, those are hard for me because I have to pay attention the whole time. And when I'm playing against the more natural shooters that I'm used to, I can just play. But those games, I really kind of have to focus. And being my age and focusing the whole time at a game, like, I just want to have fun. But I also am not letting in goals.
Yeah. No, totally. And that's fascinating that because I was going to ask this follow-up to, you said that shooters come out to the goalie camps. So would it be, like, unorthodox or out of there for me to think that maybe some of the advice, like, because I have to imagine that the shooters also have to learn about what they're doing and how to counter for certain goalies. Would you kind of give the advice, like, not that I want to say, like, be bad or be not good shooters, but, like, almost like, is it better to have that unorthodox, like, unpredictability to it? Like, because I know you can't really teach unpredictability. Yeah. But is that almost better to have because you are so accustomed to the pros? And is that something that you can kind of, like, teach or sway? Like, what would you kind of teach a shooter to do that would be, like, not a goalie's weak spot, but, like, an area of, like, difficulty that they might have? Yeah,
that's a good. So I coach goalies and teach goalies, but also at the national level and Team Alberta and stuff, I teach the forwards how to shoot and where to shoot. And it's not like I can physically go out and do, but I can shoot fairly well because I know which parts. And I can know if you're shooting off this foot or that foot, if you're shooting mid-stride, if you're shooting from out here or there. And so teaching that side as well. So not so much at our camps, but more at a national team level when we do things like that. We do goalie sessions, but we're also doing the goalie sessions to teach the players. Like, this is what our opponents do. Finland's a big ringette one. Yes. So this is what Finland does that's really tricky that works. And so we're teaching our forwards how to do what works for Finland while we're teaching our goalies how to fix that. And I do say to some of the elite goalies too, some of the younger kids too, so 2 things is that the one is that, you know what, the things that I'm noticing technically and all these little things, like, we're fixing the elite level skills for you that a lot of players aren't going to they're not going to figure out and know what to do. And we also tell the goalies, like, most of the players, figure out who you're playing. Most of the teams have 2 or 3 good players. Most of those players have 2 or 3 moves. So if you know who's got the ring and what their moves are, you're pretty good. If they've learned 1 new move since the last time you played them and they score once, now you know their 3rd or 4th move. And we say that physically to the players to be like, you guys probably only have 2 or 3 moves. You might want to work on that if you're going to be successful at the national level. And we say, like, what's your top 6 moves? And some of them are blank. And be like, you only have 6. You don't have 6. let's work on getting 6 because
Oh,
you
wow.
need 6 to 8 to 10 different things and different ways to score in different locations. So that the goalies, it's like, who do you know on the other teams? Where do they shoot? What do they do?
No, and it's fascinating.
Strategy.
Yeah,
It's
like
chess.
it's always interesting to me because like so then you would suggest and like a good practice to have, and I'm sure everyone's gonna be like, of course it is for the goalies to kind of actively not only just watch, of course, where the puck or the tourist is, being kept, but like actively watch each individual player for what they're doing and their moves and how they're going to pass. And this is something you're doing while also worried about not letting things in at the same time.
Strategy, play.
That's
yeah. Well, and you see it at the high levels too, like Connor McDavid, how many moves and breakaways and things like that, and you're like, oh, that's a new one, that's fun, and you have to figure it out. But I had like my friend Barb Batista, she's the coach of the national team senior down in Calgary, and I played for Edmonton when she played for Calgary, and at the start of the season, she randomly scored on a different way, and I was like, oh, she learned something else.
Oh no! Yeah.
So then for the rest of the season, I'm like, and remember, she can also do this. Don't let her do that.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
Oh, that's always impressive to like. And I guess you must keep it fresh because after a while, I imagine that like coaches, of course, like you, are like, they got this, they got
Shake it
that.
up.
If they do any of these and you let it in, come on, like we know about this. But how often is it like? Because this is all new to me. I'm just now in learning mode.
Yeah.
How often and I imagine this has to have a high level of difficulty to learn something new and implement it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that like happens season to season, like, or are there some that are just so gifted that you're like, you learned like 3 new things since the last time we like what? Like, so what are the like chances of them? Like, is it possible to learn something new, and is it possible to push yourself to learn many new things? Would you say focus on like honing 3 good, solid new moves instead of focusing on trying to like get 6? Because I know that some people will take this and go like, I need to have 6 moves.
Check.
Yeah, right? Like, so
Yeah.
which one is kind of more formidable and better to have? Is it the 3 like, I've practiced this, I know what I'm doing, or the 6 like, I don't know if I have to pull this out, like, here's what I'll do.
Yeah, it's the fine line between you want people that can play systems but not only do the systems.
Oh, okay.
So you need the creativity and read and react and all that. And like we took a goalie, Amy Clarkson, out of Manitoba, and her goalie style is completely unorthodox.
Oh.
And she just plays totally different, like Hasek, like she's got some crazy mad skills and stuff. And it's like, this is great because you're not like all the other goalies and you're making saves. But let's take this, let's not completely change this. Let's tweak it a little bit so that if they start doing this, you can react this way now. Mm-hmm. So if they start reading different ways to break your style down, that you can still adjust and broaden your horizons, right? So it's, we need you to do certain skills, but we need you to also learn to read and react. And if that breakout or that move's not working, what do you do? Because you're not out there at the same time, especially with goalies, but with players, you're not out there. And you want people that are different. Like, you need to be able to score in 18 different manners from all over. You don't want everyone to do the exact same play. And we get that with the little kids, too. Like, it's great to have kids that can skate, but you need kids that are smart. Mm-hmm. You need kids that can pass. You need kids that are good teammates that will stick up for each other. And you need kids that can, like, emotionally rebound.
No.
And so when you're looking for coachability, yes, you're looking for skill, for speed, agility, but you're also looking for coachability and those that can play in a team. And then you look at life skills for jobs. Those are the people you want to work with.
Mm-hmm. No, that's fantastic. I'm going to say and like touch back on that. So if you did have a player that like naturally is picking up the sport, is gifted at it, but say is not in line with, like these kind of professional checkpoints, because I imagine that now with many sports, like there's a rubric for like you shoot like this, you aim like this is what you're looking for and everything. And you notice that they're not doing it, but they're very like talented and like quite gifted, and I'm impressed that you're doing this. Do you try to adjust them into like, here is the rubric, or are you more in line with trying to make the rubric kind of fit to them and how they play? And why is it important to do either? Yeah,
it's a fine line. Like, definitely here's some skills that you need to add to your repertoire. Mm-hmm. So instead of changing, you need to add this way. But we also realize, like goalies, some are left, some are right. Mm-hmm. So the breakout sometimes changes depending on which goalie's in net. But you have a general breakout, or you have 4 different general breakouts. And a breakout works a certain way with certain goalies. But if you can get high level to be like, depending on which of our forwards, we can do this breakout with this forward set because they're really good at stabbing the ring this way, and or this is really good at crossing, depending on. But that gets into the technical side.
Yeah, I guess more.
Yeah, so if you have time and a lot of time with your
Tons
whole
of
group
patience
together,
like,
then you can do things like that. And it's like a chess match for sure. And you take skills, but everyone does need to also add some generic. Like you can't just have a whole team and then adjust for one person
of course
all the time. But like you need to fit in, but you also want to be unique and have your own skills too.
No, and then that's kind of, I would go, oh. New question from Rekha. Ooh.
Are there? Oh, workshops.
Yes, of course.
Ooh.
So Rekha's question, in case nobody was able to read that from your side, is how do the players learn kind of like the life skills and playability skills? And also, are there workshops that will teach kind of those? Because I imagine on top of teaching, like, here's how to shoot, here's how to, like, there has to be kind of team building workshops to implement, like, hey, you're a team, you're not a one person show, so to say. Do those workshops, are those,
I don't know. Like we do goalie lectures, right? So we do it for our goalies in our programs, and I'm sure other organizations do things. There's like NCCP coaching courses that deal with the mental side of things, but I feel like there's leadership courses when you go to work, and we took with the national team program, we took a leadership course together to learn our different leadership styles. And it was really neat. So it's like, are you empathetic? Are you aggressive? Are you like a collaborator? And like, what's your leadership style? So that we learned how to best work together as a whole group. So there's neat things you can do like that, but I don't know, that might be a new avenue. So in our free time, maybe we'll morph into that if we can find some free time.
Add that to the repertoire. No, like, it's been so impressive to learn like so much from you, and like it's fascinating. Like I will also add this to the beginning of the thing of like, where do you have the time to do this?
I know.
Not only have you done that, but you have written 2 books.
Yes.
On the, like, where was the time?
Well, that was my moment with so when I finished articling in Toronto, and then I moved out here to play hockey. I was finished articling and didn't have a job downtown Bay Street, and so I moved out here and I had a year off. And I played hockey and ringette for a year. And during that year, I was like, oh, people keep asking about this ringette goalie stuff. So I put it into a ringette goalie on ice instruction book. And it's called The Complete Guide to Ringette Goaltending. And I need to update it. So I have new pictures and new things to add with throwing and glove and things. So I need a week to update it, and then it's ready to go. And I've sold out 2 reiterations of it. So I'm actually out of that book. You can join a wait list, but I'm currently out of that book. And I sell it out of my basement.
Is there a special wait list for some
you
folks?
can jump in first, but I still need to update with that week of free time. And then I also did an off-ice one. So off-ice ringette goalie conditioning and warm-up, cool-down, things that I did with the national team, myself, and things that I incorporated to get my legs and body ready. So I put that into an off-ice conditioning book for ringette goalies. And we also, so Heather and I have an idea to put some of our drills into a drill book, because coaches are always like, what we can find hockey drills for goalies here and there, but like ringette goalies are different. We don't slide around, and we have different skills, and we need to get up and push and do different things like that. But Heather and I have drills that work on things that are relevant all the way up to high level. But we also need to find time to put that into our drill book.
No,
so we have wait lists in an email format that when we actually pull that together, we will get it out to the public again.
No, that's fantastic. How often do you sign them?
Oh, anytime.
Anytime?
Yeah,
fantastic.
I can sign them and put them in the mail. Yeah. We're very
brilliant.
Ringette is very easy.
No, that's fantastic. No, it's just insane to me, like, because I'm like, does she like weave time out of thin air? This must be like, like to do. And then like on top of that, like, it's so amazing to see that even after you've put out, you're like, no, but there's improvements. And that's the one thing that like I've noticed throughout talking with you and having this discussion with you, is that like you always have this kind of mental space of like, it's like, I don't want to say the meme of like, it's good, but it can be better. But that's literally like everything I'm feeling, from the glove, from the books, from, forming a league of your own, kind of like, how did that kind of like, I was like, where did that mental space or like come from to consistently want to like go, yes, it's good, it's great, but it can be here, you know, like,
yeah.
because I have to imagine like it must have been formed like either like as you were playing or everything, because many folks have the like, I'm in my space, I'll work in it, good enough for me. But with you, it's like, but we can make this just so much, like we can get you just there. So how, like, yeah, like what is it that like drives you to consistently go, great, but we can go here?
Well, I think a couple things, but general positive outlook on life, and maybe that's a bit savvy, but like, and my dad's a behavioral psychologist for the school board, so he worked with special needs all the way up to enriched kids, and he helped coach most of my teams. So Dad and I would drive back and forth, and his whole approach is, let's not pick apart and, you know, make fun of our teammates and talk badly about the other team. It's, how can we deal with this, or let's talk about what happened and how can we do it better and how can we structure. So his whole mind frame that way, and it's interesting too, because it's not just sports. So when I was 3, I started playing the violin, and then I did the saxophone in grade 7, and so I joined all the other activities at school too. So I was in the intramural club, I was in the band, I was in the symphony, I was in all the other sports and activities and extracurricular things. But there was a girl that was on my daughter's ringette team, and I could tell her mom was, well, we do Fit Set Ninja as well. And I'm like, that's awesome. I was multi-sport too. And the girl's like, oh, seriously? Because she wanted to drop some of these extra. And then it's like, and she's also in Mandarin school. And I'm like, ni hao. And she's like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, we had 2 Chinese hockey players come and play on our team in Edmonton. And then they flew our chimos over for 2 weeks to China. And so we had this little 14-year-old girl on our team for the year that didn't know English, and I bought a book on Mandarin, and our whole team learned all these phrases in Mandarin so that we could help this girl feel like, I know how to say like, you're pretty and good job, and compliment her in Mandarin when she's playing defense in front of us, because then she feels part of the team, right? So the girl on my daughter's team is like, seriously, I have to stay in Mandarin school, and now I need... I'm like, you can do all of these things, and multi-sport, ringette and hockey and inline, and, you know, play ball, do other things, see what you can do to make it work. But yeah, it's the big, I think it was Wayne Gretzky or somebody that was like, multi-sport is the way to go, and multiple high-level athletes have said that ever since. But it's true, is that I was on the ice maybe 8-9 times a week, but I was on the ice for different sports with different groups, and I was kind of refreshing myself every time.
No, and that's amazing that, like, and again, of course it is, because it's like, I was like, oh my God. And yeah, even when you said ni hao, I'm like, where did you find the time
to?
Yeah,
all these other languages, right? And then inline, like, I did the athlete's oath when we hosted Worlds in 2004 in England, or London, Ontario. I did the athlete oath in Spanish.
Oh my God.
Because it was like, sure, I took first year Spanish in university, and then I know the Mexican goalie for the inline team, and she's now on the Mexican ice hockey team. Her brother actually lives in Alberta with his family, but it's like, you learn Spanish and then you figure it out.
No, that's fantastic. And I love that whole concept of like team building, and like you like learning Mandarin and teaching it to bring that teammate in is such a wonderful thing. Like, it's funny that you're saying it here to like bring them in, and I guarantee that if we flipped this to them, they would have been so stoked to know that someone was trying to include them and bring them in. I can speak for this because when I got here, I didn't know how to speak English, and so it was very difficult because I had to use like hand gestures, and that's why the hands always move and everything. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to learn this language because communication is just so difficult. I can only put on so many smiles and hand gestures and shadow puppets before it's like, how do I communicate? How do I, you know, and belong? And I had someone in school try to learn Arabic, and I was like, it just stuck with me because I was like, I'm so thankful that you're attempting that bridge, and I'm just not like solo out here going like, I just don't understand. I'm just abandoned to like, you know, try to pick myself up and catch up to, you know, talk with you and everything. So wonderful story to hear, but like, of course that makes sense. That, like, you had that happen, and again saw a place to improve and improved upon it. So wonderful there. I think I have talked about ringette a whole bunch. I wanted to kind of meander into other facets, but like, I also wanted to ask for our viewers, because law is also your background. How did you kind of get into that, and what kind of drove you to go down that route, and what kind of advice would you say, like, avoid law if you're going to do this? Because I know so many times, anytime I get asked questions, people are like, law is like Suits, and I'm like, no, we do TV, we take it and we embellish it. Please never buy into the fact that this is what you're going to be doing when you enter it. So
I have a good visual, Gabby. Hold on. If you like to read, that's what law is. I carry this with me in my backpack to work, to home.
Okay.
Because these are all the different contracts with the fine print. Like, there's a lot of super fine print in here.
oh my gosh, what is that? It's like
And,
size 2
like, I have
font?
like my, because I'm over 40, my extra glasses if need be. But if you, it helps that you like to read and you have to care about the details.
Oh.
Like, there's lawyers that are high-level philosophical. You can gloss over the rainmakers that bring in the clients, but then there's the people that get the work done. And, like, you know, you have your cell phone policy.
Yeah.
I have read the cell phone policy, terms and conditions for our work. And that's my job, right? And, like, I've drafted contest rules. I read the contest rules for all the contests to try to get different ideas. And it's such, for me, the sports side of law is way more fascinating.
Of
but
course.
I worked for a company here in Edmonton when I first got to Edmonton, and I was doing like oil and gas and recycling and pensions and benefits, and I still don't tell them, but I still don't understand pensions and benefits very well. But like, there's different areas of law that are quite complicated, and some are fascinating and some are quite boring. And you need to find the niche that you enjoy. But I was going to have my sport life and do things fun outside, and then deal with oil and gas and pensions and things like that to make money on the legal side, because I could read and do things. But then this job opened up at the Oilers. I started in 2006. And it was just with the Edmonton Oilers, so they were offering a 4-day-a-week, and I've been the first in-house lawyer that they've ever had. So they created the position coming out of the lockout. They're like, we think we have enough legal that we can bring someone in-house, but only 4 days. And then we got the Oil Kings franchise, and so then I moved to 5 days. And then, like, years later, I had baby came back, and then we moved into Rogers Place, and now we manage all the events. So the concerts, we Fan Park Plaza, and we do supplies and security and different things for the arena and how it operates, and
just
snow removal,
oh
like all of those. So
yeah,
this is just a day-to-day. This isn't a...
Oh my, this is like a day, one day.
These are things that I've read in case people ask me questions.
Oh my
Because I work from home some days, and I come into the office most days. But the days I work from home, I actually get a lot of reading, and I get a lot of things done. But I need to have things with me if they ask. COVID was really, really tough, but COVID was also helpful to say, you know what, you can still do things from, I'm fortunate that I don't have to come to all the events. Like some of the people here do come to all the events, and it's super fun, but when you have kids and you want to tuck them in,
of course,
I actually want to do my own things too. So I can come to events, and I do come to events, but I don't have to all the time. And I'm also able to work from home. So I kind of have like the perfect mesh of sports and law and entertainment to also fit into my life.
No, and I imagine it must have been a huge, huge bonus to be like, hey, not only a law degree, but also I have played at national level. And, you know, was that like a huge added bonus? Like, we have to get her and bring her on here because, like, she just gets it?
I think too, and I say this all the time when I speak at different networking events, but I think it helped too that I was female. Is that tons of lawyer boys were applying for the same position. And it was, I am different than everybody else, the difference, and we want someone that thinks a little bit different but can still interact with people. And my job too, like I interact with the 20-year-old, our ticket account holders and our ticketing customer, like I interact with the younger generation, and I interact all the way up to our president. So I think, yes, I'm a lawyer, but I'm a lawyer that can interact with people, which... Sometimes that's rare in lawyers.
No, that, like, I have to say, way more personable than mine. I'll say for right now. But that could be because mine's always like, you're on the clock, let's go.
Yes, so. In-house is better too, is that we also get to engage and like have lunch and take a moment, get the work done, but you can talk to people. And then by having us there, they're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't do this promotion because it's a bit too risky. And I'm like, you got to be a little mindful of liability and injuries. And yes, I'm also a slightly fun killer. but I'm more how can we enable the fun safely?
No, but
That's
like
my plan.
here's the thing: is like even when chatting with you, I would imagine, yeah, you would be the type that you're like, listen, we're not gonna drive an ATV across like flaming vehicles, all right? There's tons of, but here's what we can do to make it happen.
Yes.
So one thing I wanted to ask is that like you mentioned that yes, there's going to be a lot of lawyer boys. Has there been, and have you noticed something? Because I always imagine, I always say like, I always love seeing a diverse team anywhere. Like even my team when we film, it makes up so many different like genders, backgrounds, and everything because it helps because sometimes I just have tunnel vision from my perspective, and then someone can go, hey, I don't know about this because you're not doing this, and it doesn't really include this, that.
Yeah.
Has like you joining the team as a female lawyer, have you noticed and seen some policies you're like, what are we doing here? Like, let's adjust this to be more inclusive? Has that happened?
Yeah, definitely. And I think too, I just talked to our women's networking group yesterday here at work, and I said two things is that volunteer to lead things because a lot of time we do a lot of the background lawyer, we do a lot of the work for people so that they can lead. Be like, let's lead as well. So host things like I hosted our U10 championship for my daughter's team to be like, let's just run it. We're going to run it so that I can pick a weekend that works for me. So if I pick this weekend, I will run the whole thing. And then I also said, speak up more. Because we're sitting back and we're like, oh, maybe people have already thought about this and maybe, you know, I don't know if I should say it or not. I've found like put it out there.
Yeah.
And then like I think of things 15 minutes before other people do because I think I'm a goalie, I'm a lawyer. I think of things a lot differently. And a lot of people don't think that way. But then you also need to be an environment that supports that. So that's the other thing, is that when you're on a team, and a good team, is that you're in a group where someone can say that, and they can throw ideas at the wall, and they can speak up, and you'd be like, oh, we already thought about that, dismissive, and cutting them down, and don't waste our time. Or like, oh, yeah, that was a good point, but let's figure that out, or, you know. I always think of Trivial Pursuit, because the game of Trivial Pursuit I'm not very good at. My dad's really good.
We finally found something that, you know, Keely
I know,
is not,
there's a lot.
Oh my God, yeah.
There's lists of things, I'm sure. But Trivial Pursuit, like I like to just toss answers out and see. Like I was on the school Reach for the Top team in high school. It was like this like Jeopardy thing for
nice.
high school. But I was on there because I knew the random topics, like the sports and the different things. But you just, if you have the support that you can toss ideas out, sometimes your answers are going to be correct.
No, that's
Put
an
it out.
impressive thing to add. Like, I have so many more questions and so many things to go over, and I was almost worried I wouldn't be able to fill it out, but you have been, I have to say, fantastic because I've learned so much, and just the mentality and how you adapt things into not just like sports, but life, business, and everything have just been wonderful. Like, I can't thank you enough because it's always nice to hear things that like, hey, we can improve this, hey, here's how we can adjust this and make it happen, because I feel like I kind of do that often in my career, but then many times I'm like, does anyone else do this? Does anyone else feel like they're continually like, you know, asking the question of like, why do we do this like this? And like not in the sense of like, hey, I don't like this, but more in the sense of like, because I always hear from my career like, well, this is how we've always done it, and I'm like, yes, that wonderful not buzzkill term that like always sets me off because I'm like, but why? Who set this forth? And then you learn like back in like the 60s, 50s, they did this and it's always just been that. And that's not to take away from like things that have worked, but it's always like, can we improve upon this? So always nice to hear from you like, yes, you can. Yes, you can make it happen. Yes, things can be changed. Like they're good, but they can be better. So that's been like one of the takeaways. I won't keep you because, as always, Keely is super busy. It is game day. I hope we get a repeat of what we did Monday because I have to say, and you know we keep doing really not bad, really not bad, over and over. But Keely, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you learned some things too, much as I learned so much. But thank you so much for joining us. And to the viewers, thank you so much for being here. Hopefully you learned a whole bunch just like I did. And as always, we will catch you next time.